So just because it's hard doesn't mean it's over. We have a way of letting difficulty become our definition. We hit a wall, we feel pressure, and we start making conclusions like, well, maybe this isn't meant to be. Or if it were God's will, wouldn't it be easier? And before we know it, we've surrendered to a lie that tells us struggle is a sign of separation from God, when in reality, it's often a sign that God is closer than ever, working, pruning, shaping, preparing. See, I've learned that sometimes the presence of pressure is actually the proof of purpose. You don't face opposition when you're not a threat. You don't experience resistance when you're standing still. But when you start stepping into something God's called you to, whether it's building a marriage, raising a child, launching a dream, battling an addiction, or holding on to faith when everything in your life feels like it's falling apart, that's when things get real. And that's when the heat turns up. But hear me, just because it's hard doesn't mean it's over. Jesus never said it would be easy. He said, in this world you will have trouble. That's a promise. But then he follows it up with this: take heart, I have overcome the world. That's the tension of our faith. We walk through trouble, but we don't walk through it alone. Think about Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. This is the Son of God, perfect, powerful, divine, and yet in that moment he felt the weight so deeply, he said, my soul is overwhelmed to the point of death. He prayed, Father, if there's any other way. Don't tell me Jesus didn't understand pressure. Don't tell me he didn't understand the pain of knowing the cost of obedience. But even in that heaviness, he said, not my will, but yours be done. He didn't walk away. He didn't tap out. He pressed in, and it was that decision in the middle of the pain that brought resurrection power. So if Jesus had to go through hard things to fulfill his purpose, what makes us think we won't? The enemy wants you to equate pain with punishment, but sometimes pain is just part of the process. Sometimes what you call a setback is actually a setup for something God is doing behind the scenes. I wonder how many people gave up right before the breakthrough. How many people quit the race because they thought exhaustion meant failure when it actually meant they were almost at the finish line? You're tired? That's okay. Jesus was tired too. You're overwhelmed? That's okay. You don't have to fake strength to have faith. You can bring God your honesty. You can bring him your brokenness. You can say, God, I don't feel like I can do this, and he will meet you right there. Because the promise isn't that you'll never feel weak, it's that his strength is made perfect in weakness. God is not looking for perfection, he's looking for persistence. Remember the Israelites at the walls of Jericho. God told them to march around the city for 7 days. But here's the part that gets me. God didn't tell them exactly when the walls would fall. He just said, march. And for 6 days, they marched in silence. Can you imagine how silly that felt? Walking, waiting, wondering, is anything even happening? But just because nothing is happening to you doesn't mean nothing is happening through you. God was working even when the wall still looked tall. And on the 7th day, after the 7th lap, they let out a shout and the walls came crashing down. But the shout would have never happened if they had quit on lap 4. Don't quit on lap 4. Don't walk away in the middle just because it's hard. God is still in it. He's still writing. He's still fighting for you in ways you cannot see. The fact that it's hard doesn't mean God has left. It means you're in the middle of something significant. And if you'll keep walking, keep trusting, keep showing up, I promise you'll see the walls fall. It's hard, but it's not over. You're pressed, but not crushed. You're struck down, but not destroyed. And the story God's telling with your life, it's not finished yet. You will make it through. God's provision is already in the process. You may not see it yet. You may not feel it yet, but just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not there. Just because it hasn't shown up in your hands doesn't mean God hasn't already released it from his. One of the biggest lies the enemy will whisper in your ear is, if it hasn't happened yet, it's not going to. But I came to break that lie over your life, because the delay is not the denial. The waiting doesn't mean the working has stopped. God doesn't need your timeline to accomplish his will. He doesn't check your calendar before he brings your breakthrough. Let's go to the story in Exodus 14. The Israelites are standing at the edge of the Red Sea. Pharaoh's army is closing in behind them. There's fear, panic, confusion, and they cry out to Moses, "Why did you bring us here to die?" That sounds familiar, doesn't it? You've probably had moments where you thought, "God, why am I here? Why did you bring me this far just to leave me hanging?" But Moses stands up and says something powerful. "The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." Exodus 14:14. What they didn't know was this, the provision, the miracle, was already in motion before they ever saw it. God tells Moses, "Lift your staff," and as Moses obeys, the sea begins to part. But here's the thing, it didn't part until they moved. It didn't split while they were standing still in fear. The water didn't move until they did. See, some of us are waiting on God to make a way while God is waiting on us to take a step. The provision is in the process. The miracle is in motion, but you have to be willing to move. You have to be willing to trust God mid-stride, not just in the aftermath. You don't get the full picture and then believe. You believe first, and then you walk into what he's already prepared. There's a word for somebody today. God's already gone ahead of you. He's already arranged the resources. He's already spoken to the person you're going to meet. He's already lining up the healing, the favor, the opportunity. The problem is we often let what we don't see talk us out of what God already said. Think about Abraham in Genesis 22. God tells him to sacrifice his son, Isaac. That alone is overwhelming, terrifying, and yet Abraham obeys. He walks up the mountain in faith, not knowing what God is going to do. But what he doesn't realize is that while he's walking up one side of the mountain in obedience, a ram is coming up the other side in provision. You missed it. Before Abraham even reaches the top, God already has the solution waiting in the thicket. And I believe God wanted me to tell you, your ram is already in the thicket. You may not see it yet, but it's coming. Your answer, your open door, your healing. It's moving toward you as you move in faith. That's how God works. He often waits until the last possible second, not to punish you, but to develop your trust, to deepen your dependence. Because what good is a faith that only functions when things are easy? Faith is not proven in the harvest. Faith is proven in the planting. Faith isn't just about believing when you're holding the blessing. It's about obeying when you're walking through the barren place. I know the process is painful. I know it's frustrating when the door doesn't open when you thought it would, but you have no idea what God is doing in the dark. You have no clue what he's preparing behind the scenes. Just because you're in a silent season doesn't mean God is silent. He's speaking, he's providing, he's working while you're waiting. He's delivering the package even while your tracking app says processing. And when you least expect it, he will show up in a way that makes it obvious. This wasn't me, this was God. This wasn't luck, this was divine alignment. This wasn't random, this was orchestrated. So don't stop walking, don't stop trusting, don't stop sowing even when you haven't seen the harvest yet. Because God's provision is already in the process. You don't have to see it to believe it. You just have to believe it long enough to walk into it. And when it shows up right on time, you'll look back and realize he was there all along. What you thought would break you will build you. Let that settle for a second. That thing that had you crying in the middle of the night, that season where it felt like you were losing everything, that betrayal that hit you so deep you didn't even have the words to pray. Yeah, that. God's gonna use that. It didn't break you, it bruised you, yes. It shook you, absolutely, but it didn't destroy you. And if it didn't destroy you, then it has no authority to define you. The enemy thought it would be the end of you, but God's about to show you it was actually the beginning of something deeper, something stronger, something better. Let's go to the word. Genesis 50:20. Joseph says to his brothers, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." Joseph didn't say, God erased what you did. He said, God used what you did. That's different. God doesn't need to delete your pain to redeem your purpose. He doesn't need to undo your past to unlock your future. He'll take what the enemy meant to cripple you and use it to cultivate you. Think about Joseph's life, betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, thrown in prison, forgotten, abandoned, misunderstood. If anybody had a reason to give up, it was Joseph. If anybody could have said, God must not be with me, it was him. But somehow, in the middle of every dark place, Joseph kept showing up. He kept serving. He kept trusting. And every pit he was thrown into became preparation for the palace God was leading him to. What if the thing that made you feel small is the very thing God is using to grow something big in you? You thought it would break you, and truthfully, you almost let it, but you didn't. You're still here. And I believe that if you could see your situation from heaven's perspective, you'd realize something. That heartbreak didn't shatter you, it shaped you. That failure didn't disqualify you, it refined you. That detour wasn't a delay, it was divine direction. It's funny how we want strength without struggle. We pray for God to build our faith, then get mad when he gives us something we have to trust him through. We ask for purpose, but we don't want pain. We want growth, but we don't want the dirt. But nothing grows without being buried first. And maybe, just maybe, you're not buried, you're planted. God has a way of taking what looked like loss and turning it into legacy. He's the only one who can take a cross, an instrument of execution, and turn it into a symbol of eternal life. So don't underestimate the season you're in just because it hurts. You might be standing in the middle of the most important construction site of your life. Pain has a purpose. God is building something in you that comfort never could. He's building endurance. He's building character. He's building deeper roots. See, what you went through gave you empathy you didn't have before. What you walked through gave you a testimony somebody else needs to hear. What tried to silence you actually made your voice stronger. You thought it would break you. And honestly, you don't even know how you made it, but grace carried you. Mercy held you together, and now you've got the kind of faith that can't be faked because it's been forged in fire. There's something about people who've been through real stuff. You can hear it in their praise. You can see it in their perseverance. They don't worship out of convenience. They worship out of conviction because they know what it feels like to hit rock bottom and still find out God is the rock underneath. So don't despise what you've been through. Don't be ashamed of the scars. They're not signs of defeat. They're proof of survival. God is not done with you, and he's not going to waste a single ounce of your pain. He's going to use it. He's going to build something so beautiful from the pieces that were supposed to break you. People will look at your life and say, only God. So lift your head, wipe your tears, straighten your back. You are not broken. You're being built. And what God builds can never be shaken. You will make it through. And when you do, you'll be stronger, wiser, deeper, not in spite of the pain, but because of it.